do you need me to read the notice?
Millicent, let me know that her she's frozen up. So yeah, would you like to read that? And
Let me. Notice members of the Bicycle Advisory Committee may participate remotely by telephone or other electronic means due to the local public health emergency, novel coronavirus pandemic, pursuant to the statute provisions of Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. That's the notice. Welcome, everybody. So let's jump right into introductions. I will start, and then I will put in the chat the prompts that I shared earlier, which is name, pronouns if you'd like, what your seat is, how long you've been on the BAC, and then if you want to share a spot that you like to bike. So my name is Alyssa Shuffman. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am the Ward 9 representative on the Bicycle Advisory Committee, and as I mentioned, the outgoing 5 East chair. This is the beginning of my 3rd term on the BAC. I've been on the BAC about 4 years. I love the BAC. And my favorite spot to bike in Minneapolis, at least, is over to Moon Palace Books, my local bookstore. The bookseller Will there is the human I have seen most often, besides the person I live with throughout the pandemic. So, and then I am just going to popcorn to the top of the participants list and kind of just go down in order as soon as I can get that to load. I think first up on the list is Dan Miller.
Hi there, folks. I'm Dan Miller, and I represent Ward 1 in Northeast Minneapolis. I'm a Wyndham Park resident, and let's see, I've been on the BAC about 3 years and just reappointed. And my favorite place to ride, I seem to always gravitate to getting to the river. No matter what route I go, I wind up down by the river and running the river. So that's it. I say everything?
You did. Thanks, okay. Dan.
All right.
I will popcorn it to, is it Deanna? Deanna?
Hi, I'm Deanna Newman. Right? Is it me?
We can hear you, yep.
Oh, okay. I'm Deanna Newman, and I am brand new. This is my very first meeting with the BAC, so I don't have too much more to share there. My favorite rides always include food. If there's food in it, then I like the ride.
Dina, what do you represent? Are you a ward representative?
Oh, I am downtown. I am right downtown.
Oh, so is it
Ward right next to Lori Park? Yep.
Ward 7.
So Lisa.
Ward 7.
Lisa
yeah,
Goodman.
Lisa.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ward 7.
Awesome. Thanks. Popcorn to Matthew Deardahl.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Deardahl, bike ped coordinator in Minneapolis Public Works. Welcome to all the new folks, and we appreciate the returning members as well. I also love the BAC. I've been with the city for 5.5 years, something like that. I really miss some of my really long weekend rides, checking out projects. That's one of the things that I like to do on weekends, just hit different parts of Minneapolis just to make sure that I'm, keeping up on all of our projects and all the neighborhoods. So I'll leave it at that. Welcome, everyone.
Thanks, Matthew. Samuel?
Hello, my name is Samuel Ferg, representing the 13th Ward. This is my first BAC meeting. Excited to be a part of this group. And I would have to say one of my favorite rides is I normally take from Hopkins to Eden Prairie. Honestly, the trail name is escaping me, but that's one of my favorite ones. And I'll normally, that Depot coffee, I would grab a cup of coffee on that trail.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thanks. Millicent, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Millicent Flowers. I'm an employee of Minneapolis Public Works. So I'm part of the staff that administers this body, I guess. And I've been a part of the Bicycle Advisory Committee since I think 2017, so 3 years, just about. I've learned a lot from this group. This is a great group. I enjoy these meetings all the time. So I think my favorite place to bike in Minneapolis now, since I don't live in Minneapolis anymore, would probably be on the Midtown Greenway, because it's the big, wonderful straight shot. You get to see a lot, and I really enjoy that.
Thanks, Millicent. Janice, you're up.
Okay, my name is Janice Kepner. I'm one of the 3 Park Board citizen reps. I joined the BAC, it's been almost exactly 10 years ago. So before that, I think the BAC, the membership had been more informal. And then 10 years ago, we kind of tightened up the membership, 1 member from every ward, 3 Park Board citizen reps, and members from many city committees. And so I think the new people will notice that. So about half the members, I think slightly over half the membership are just citizen members. And then there's another maybe almost a dozen members who are from different city organizations. And then actually, if we were meeting in person, from their name tags, you could tell, exactly which organization people were from. But I guess the other thing I'd like to say is that everybody has been new at some point on the BAC. And so when you are new, you have to make sure that you ask questions and you're not afraid to ask questions. When the shorthand terms fly fast and furious, you have to stop us and say, what is safe routes to schools? What is a click and things like that? So make sure you ask questions. And I guess my favorite place to ride is probably, I'd have to say, the Chain of Lakes.
Thanks, Janice, for that reminder. That's also a good reminder for those of us who are returning to not acronym everything to death. Next up on the list, I think, is Jenny.
Hello, everyone. I am Jenny Borden. I use she, her pronouns, and I represent Minneapolis Public Schools on the BAC, and I also Minneapolis. So happy to see my friend Marty Grimes here. So I can't wait for you all to. That's why I kept my camera on, because I'm just like, oh, Marty's here. As an aside. I have been on the BAC, I don't know, as some of you guys were saying, I'm like, well, I'm longer than them. So I guess it's been a while, maybe 5 or 6 years. I just now am feeling that I'm not new. So some of us have a slower learning curve than others. And there's many bike rides I love. I really love the Hiawatha Trail heading into downtown. I just think it's so cool, the train, and when the train makes sounds, and then the people coming off, and then, it looks so beautiful at Cedar Riverside, and it's just, I think it's just lovely coming in to downtown. It might be one of my faves.
Thanks, Jenny. Y'all are making me want to get on my bike. Next up, I think, is Joey.
Hi, I'm Joey Sankier. I use he, him pronouns. I'm brand new. I represent Ward 3. And my favorite bike ride is, I think, I really like the triangle of like starting downtown, going down the river, coming up the Greenway, and then returning downtown on the Cedar Lake Trail, which doesn't, work right now, but will eventually again. So. Yeah.
Someday. Thanks, Joey. And next is Chris, I think.
Hi, I'm Chris Kartheiser. I am Minneapolis Public Works staff and associate transportation planner. I've been here 3 years this month, and working with the BAC and the PAC the whole time. And my favorite place to ride, I guess I have a few different ones, but I like just going out. I'm not from the Twin Cities originally, so I still like kind of exploring new neighborhoods, and just like if it's kind of a leisurely ride, just being able to zig and zag through different neighborhoods and look at new houses, neighborhoods, buildings, things like that.
Thanks, Chris. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure I differentiate between our presenting city staff and our new folks.
And you skipped Heather because she came in late, so I'm just gonna.
Oh, thank you.
Way to get called out for being late.
That's okay. You're here.
Sorry, everyone. Heather Gillick. I'm from the Minneapolis Health Department. I have been with the city about 2 years and a little over a year on the BAC. I still feel new in a lot of spaces here, but really bringing the public health approach and public health perspective to this work around active transportation and biking in particular. And my favorite place to bike right now is on my fat bike in the woods. If you can't enjoy fat biking in Minnesota, where can you enjoy it? It's like riding a monster truck, and I'm super into it.
Thanks, Heather, for that inspiration. Marty, I think you're up next.
Okay. Hey, hi, everybody. I am brand new also. I work for Minneapolis Public Schools. I'm a physical education teacher, and I teach to 4th and 5th graders how to bike. I'm a big fan of Jen Borden, and she's the one that recruited me. So I'll do anything for her that's legal. And that's all I'm going to say. Oh, my favorite place to bike. I like going from Victory all the way down to Bede-Makaska and coming back. So that's kind of like my little route.
And you represent?
Ward 4.
Ward 4.
It's amazing. We're all big fans of Jenny. Catherine, I think, is next.
Oh, sorry. You're asking guests too, right? I don't usually go by Catherine, so I didn't know that was me.
Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm just reading the names off of the participants list. I didn't mean to.
I didn't look at that closely, so I didn't realize that's what it said. I'm Kate Lamers. I'm a landscape architect with the Minneapolis Park Board. So I'm part of the planning department, and I'm here tonight specifically kind of with Nathan Koster to answer any questions, particularly around the Upper Harbor Terminal.
Awesome. Thanks. Let's see. I think Alex is also here to present, and then who else am I missing? Hillary is here to present. Maya?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Sheikh. I represent Ward 11. I'm brand new, and I grew up riding around Nokomis and the lakes, so that's my favorite for like sentimental reasons, and it's pretty.
Awesome. And then I think our last body member is Philip.
Yeah, hi everyone. Philip Music, representing Ward 2, recently appointed. And gosh, for probably 25 years, I was commuting over along Summit Avenue. So that truly is my favorite. I'd usually stop for a little espresso in the morning at Victoria and Grand. But in the last year, I've sort of left my a position where I really was focused on complete streets work, land use, and active transportation. So I would say now it's going, I'm just a block and a half from the Brackett Tunnel. So I think jumping on the Greenway, going over to Bryant Avenue, and then going down Bryant to meet up with friends at 50th is, that's been my favorite ride recently, last year.
Bet you're excited about the Bryant Avenue reconstruction coming up.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I remember when the Greenway, yeah, it's been bubbling for many a year, so it's really good.
Is there anybody I missed? I know when we transitioned
Wes Durham.
Wes, where are you on my list?
Sorry, I snuck out of the meeting for a second because I had to take a call. There was just a thing that had to happen quickly. But my name is Wes Durham, he, him. I am a city planner with the Long Range Planning Division of Minneapolis Community Planning and Economic Development, which is the team that is responsible for updating and implementing the city's comprehensive plan. I've been on the BAC. I've been with the city for 5.5 years and on the BAC for 4. And one of my favorite biking spots is especially like on a nice, cool summer night. So I live in Northeast, and if I'm like coming home from something, if I'm in a hurry, if I'm rushed, if biking is like just utilitarian transportation, I'll like take Hennepin or I'll take Third or something, just like the quickest route. But if I like am not in a rush and I'm just like enjoying biking, I always love to just take the slightly longer route across the Stone Arch Bridge, just because it's very picturesque and all.
Awesome. Thanks, Wes. I think Matthew, you have a hand raised.
Yeah, so real quick, just a technical thing. There's another member that'll be joining us very soon from Ward 12, Bree Whitcraft. Very excited for Bree, folks. I saw some positive reactions for those that know Bree. So I'm excited for that. And then there's just a technicality we need to bring through Bree and Marty for the formal process of getting council approval in January. Wait, I think January still. So, but the council member has approved them on the committee, so that's why they're joining us now. But I just wanted to give that heads up that we filled 2 more seats, and now we just have Ward 10 to go. So that's all.
Awesome. Thanks, Matthew. Is there anybody else I missed other than the presentation team? Otherwise, I will turn it over to them to introduce themselves and get started on the presentation. Okay, not hearing anybody and not seeing any raised hands except for Matthew's, which just went down. So thanks everybody for spending a few minutes introducing yourself. I am really excited to work with you to continue to make Minneapolis a great place to walk and bike. And at 5Es, we do things generally pretty informally. We'll have our presenters go through a project, and then we'll have some discussion afterward about what do we think? Do we want to pass a motion or comment on the project in some way formally as a body? If we decide we want to do that, we would then bring a motion to the full committee meeting at the end of the month. But typically we're a little more discussion based at the subcommittees. This is a pretty big group today, which is really exciting. So it might make discussion a little unwieldy, but luckily we only have one formal thing on the agenda today. So with that, I will turn it over to the presentation team to introduce themselves and share a little bit more about the Upper Harbor Terminal and where the project's at. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everyone. I'll kick it off. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Alexander Cato. I'm a transportation planner in Public Works. I use he, him pronouns. So we have about 30 minutes to talk to you all about Upper Harbor. Just a little bit of housekeeping. There's actually 2 parts to this presentation. Hillary Holmes is going to go first. She's going to talk about the overall coordinated plan, which is, I would say, a much more comprehensive effort by the city that she's been very involved with in leading, that talks about land use, touches on infrastructure, touches on the park, touches on a lot of pieces. That piece is out for public comment right now. We actually have an open house later on tonight, so Hillary's going to be on for about 15 minutes. She's going to talk about that piece. She's going to answer questions, then she's going to hop off to go lead the open house. Then me and Nathan are going to talk about the public realm and infrastructure piece. We're not asking for motions at this meeting. We're just kind of giving you a high-level overview. We are coming back to the PAC and BAC in about 2 weeks to the engineering subcommittees to talk about the more nuanced bike and ped design infrastructure pieces, but we still wanted to come to this larger body and just give you a high-level overview of what's going on for this really large project. I'll transition to Hillary to let her speak because she has a really tight window before going to lead the open house. Hillary, take it away, please.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you all and virtually meet most of you. I have a presentation to share, so if that's okay, I have it queued up and I can start sharing it if I can get a thumbs up maybe from Matt or someone else. Okay, thanks. Okay, I have a PDF, and so it is relatively brief. It's again just to give you an overview of where we've been over the last couple of years since the City Council approved the concept plan for the Upper Harbor redevelopment. We'll talk a little bit more about what a concept plan is, what a coordinated plan is, what's out right now, and what's happening. So for those of you who may not be familiar, the Upper Harbor Terminal is a city-owned site that totals about 48 acres in North Minneapolis on the Mississippi River. It's generally between Doweling Avenue and north of Lowry Avenue. As you can see from this kind of context map, there are a couple of landmarks called out, not an exhaustive list, but again, just to give people some orientation as to where the site is, the geography of it, and what's around it. Over the past 5 years, this redevelopment planning effort has been underway. As you may recall or know, the lock was closed to barge traffic. And I believe that closure was effective in 2015 with barging operations ceasing in 2014. So the Upper Harbor Terminal site had operated as a barge shipping terminal. It is still an active site with outdoor uses, but the barge operations are no longer on site. So in 2015, that kicked off the first phase of engagement around redevelopment planning. And that was and I also want to note, since we have Kate on the call and part of the presentation, that in 2015, the city and the park board began working together on redevelopment planning and engagement around the future of the Upper Harbor Terminal site. So the first couple of years were spent doing engagement around visioning and issuing a request for qualifications for a master developer, that selection of the master developer, and then that led us into 2018 and 2019, where engagement was focused on land uses and the concept plan. There is a lot of information on the project website. I also want to note around previous and current engagement. Project website just went under a big, well, not big, I mean, a relatively sizable, let's say, update around the release of the draft coordinated plan. So it's a good resource, has a lot of information on it. And so again, this kind of concept plan being general land uses, boundaries, helping determine where future roadways would be, because there's a parkway involved, a new parkway, also where the development parcels would be, where the park boundaries would be, and general land uses. The City Council approved that concept plan in March of 2019. Around that time may have been maybe the last time that CPED was in front of either the BAC or the PAC around this project. Then that was when the concept plan was out for public comment and engagement. My colleague Ann Calvert in CPED had been working, or has been working, on the site for many years, on this project for many years, and so she was in the lead at that time. And I also just wanted to note that I've been with the city for 2 years and working on this project. And I also serve as staff to the city's advisory committee, the Upper Harbor Terminal Collaborative Planning Committee, which was formed when the council approved the concept plan in March 2019. The reason the CPC was created, sorry, the UHG CPC, never to get it confused with the City Planning Commission, is that we really needed to do a deeper work to refine the concept plan into the coordinated plan. There were revisions made to the concept plan through community process and input and council as well. And so throughout the last year and a half, the UHG CPC, the city team, the development team, the park board have worked together to refine, create and refine the coordinated plan. There's also been concurrent community engagement events convened by the Public Policy Project and Environmental Justice Coordinating Council with support from Pillsbury United Communities called the Learning Tables. And so kind of together, the NPRB CAC, the UHG CPC, and the Learning Tables have helped create this plan over the last year and a half. As you're probably familiar, we're all meeting online these days and transition to that over the summer. And, you know, there's been any number of meetings, multiple a month for the UHG CPC. So it's taken a lot to get to this point, and they have done tremendous work and are continuing to do so. This is, again, just a little overview since the concept plan, but I believe I touched on these activities. I won't spend time on this slide discussing it. I'll make sure that you have access to this presentation. This is a snapshot of what we've heard from the Learning Tables and Upper Harbor Terminal Collaborative Planning Committee. This was an an early kind of compilation of some of the things we've been hearing through the community engagement and work at the CPC, and helped continue to build a foundation for the coordinated plan. Again, I had mentioned the difference between these two plans. These aren't typical planning documents that we have in the city due to the size, scope, nature of complexity of this project. They were outlined in the exclusive negotiating rights agreement between the city and United Properties, who's the master developer, and NPRB as kind of milestones or check-in points. And so this will be yet another important milestone in the planning process when it goes to council early this year, now that we're in 2021. Here is a snapshot of some updated renderings. They're illustrative renderings, but I think it's been very helpful to provide some new visions for the site from its current and existing functions, and especially since it had been a while that renderings had been released closer to the concept plan, and some things have changed. A number of things has changed, and so it's nice to have something fresh to look at that's more reflective of where the plan is at. This is a brief description of what's proposed in the plan. I would like to note that, again, the new park space, riverfront park and trails, that has remained, and that's a very important part of the plan. I also wanted to note that one major change has been the proposal to retain public ownership of the majority of the land, the exception being land that's underneath the Community Performing Arts Center. And there's more information about that in the draft plan. So this would be conveyed through long-term financeable ground leases for private development. The parkland will still be conveyed to the park board. The city would retain public ownership of the land, the rest of the private development parcels, and then the city would retain, of course, ownership of the right-of-way. There is a mix of uses proposed in the plan, which is similar to the concept plan, but a lot more refinement to what those uses are, the programming for those, the phasing as well. And so we'll talk a little bit about phasing as we continue. This is an overview of both phases of proposed development. And this is from the draft coordinated plan. And as you'll see, Doweling Avenue, I'll kind of gesture with my arrow or the cursor. Doweling Avenue, Doweling Bridge ends up closer, more on the right-hand side of the screen. And so that's kind of north is oriented down towards the bottom right-hand side of the screen with the proposed parkway alignment, the consolidated park space, the different private development extending to the south. And again, the southern border of the site is actually 33rd Avenue North. And so our Public Works colleagues will be speaking more about infrastructure improvements, what they are, what the phasing is. So this is, again, just kind of a snapshot of what's proposed. We are, of course, at massing stage. There's a bit more process to go through for each individual development beyond the coordinated plan, the site plan approvals, land use approvals, and design. So again, this is hopefully a good snapshot for you. As we had mentioned, the public comment period is open right now. Through January 15th, we have the open house tonight at 5. The recordings of those open houses, there was one in December that's on the project website, and the open house tonight will also be recorded and posted to the website. There is, or actually, sorry about that. Oh, we talk a little bit more about actual events on the next page. But this is more about kind of a look at next year, kind of high level look at next year. So as we're through draft coordinated plan, the draft coordinated plan will start moving through the city council process in February. The UHG CPC meets twice in January and will consider public comments received through the public comment period and recommend a final draft plan to the city council. Assuming that the city council approves the draft coordinated plan to make it the coordinated plan, what is also be happening in 2021 and starting this month is the environmental review process, which is an alternative urban area-wide review. And then also the coordinated plan, the next steps after that also include term sheets and redevelopment agreements for the individual phase 1 developments. Phase 2 would also be addressed through exclusive negotiating rights. And then engagement, of course, on public realm. And again, I'll defer to Alexander and Nathan if Nathan's going to participate in more information about that. This is a glimpse at what we've been doing over the last couple of months and through the rest of the public comment period in January around ways we've been getting the word out. I just going to take a quick glance down here. It looks like a couple of events are not specified on this list, and so I would like to refer you to the project website events calendar that has everything on it. There are a couple of things happening this week and next week. On here we note the McKinley community is hosting its third online conversation on Sunday, January 10th. City Open House, of course, again being tonight at 5. And then UROC and the Public Policy Project in the city are co-hosting an online conversation this Saturday at 11 a.m. And then there are a couple of other events next week, or maybe just one. We're doing a update, kind of project update, very similar to this at the Marshall Terrace neighborhood. So we've been doing those types of updates as well. That is a lot in a short time. So again, hopefully helpful to reintroduce you and kind of catch you up to where we've been over the past year and a half. And I can stop sharing and reshare as needed, but I can stop sharing now to allow time for questions.
Thanks, Hillary, for that overview. Folks, if you have questions, feel free to use the raised hand function, or if that doesn't appear on your screen, you're welcome to just take yourself off mute. Dan Miller, I think I saw a raised hand for you.
Yeah, hello. Are there any dates when actually there'll be proposed dates for breaking ground?
The phase one, oh, I see Alexander was going to pop in. Phase one infrastructure would be the first thing to break ground, and that is anticipated to be towards the end of 2022.
Thank you.
Philip, do you go by Philip or Phil?
Either, but Philip usually, but Phil's good. So just quick question, it looks like there's space, there are geometries for generous planning for bike ped facilities, but are there any sort of financial constraints or sort of geometry constraints, or is this a pretty straightforward integration into the existing bike ped route?
Yeah, Phil, I can answer that question. Yeah. And I'm going to do a presentation actually right when Hillary's done to kind of highlight some of that. But I would say overall, it is a very constrained right of way. There's a lot of competing interests. I think we've done a pretty good job of providing bike and ped facilities and separation of those facilities whenever we can. But there's definitely even though it's a fresh slate, there's still a lot of competing land use interests and slope grades from the river and just a lot of challenges. So I think you'll be excited with what we have, but it's definitely a challenge to fit it all in.
Okay, great.
Does anyone have any non-infrastructure questions for Hillary? I know she has to leave soon, and we still have another presentation to share with you all.
Thanks, Alex. This is Alyssa. I don't have a question. I've read through a large portion of the draft coordinated plan. I think there's a lot in there to be really excited about, which is really great. Seeing some of that stuff come to fruition. There's some specific things I think we as a committee would be very supportive of in terms of commitments around accessible bike ped connections, the possibility of doing a non-motorized bridge across I-94. There's a lot of really great stuff in there. I do think one glaring thing in the plan for me is the proposed 420 stall parking ramp. So we'll probably have a larger discussion later as a committee about whether or not we want to comment on the way that parking will incentivize people to drive to the site rather than walk, bike, or use transit. But I don't think we need to have that before Hillary leaves. So.
City staff, of course, have my email address, but I can drop it in the chat too if that's helpful. So if you have questions, don't be afraid to reach out.
Thanks. Anybody else want to raise their hand before Hillary has to jump off in a minute? I'm not seeing anything. Hillary, you have any other closing thoughts for us? Otherwise, we will thank you for your time. It sounds like you have a very, very busy day. So we appreciate you squeezing us in between things and bringing us this update. I think this was really great, comprehensive overview, especially for folks who are just getting tuned into the project and the committee right now.
Yes, of course. And again, a thank you just right back to you all for your time and interest, and look forward to sharing more with you. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna, thanks again, Hillary. I'm gonna take over for the next part of the presentation and share my screen. And so I have to just be cognizant that this is, for some of you all, your first BAC meeting, so I hope we leave a good impression. There's a lot of content in Upper Harbor. I feel we could probably spend an hour on each slide in this presentation, so this is just really high level. Really just giving you some context for what we're taking on from an infrastructure standpoint. Can everyone see my screen? Just want to make sure I'm actually presenting to you all.
Yes, you're good.
Great. So I'm just going to start running through these slides. Like I said, we don't have much time, so I'll keep it as succinct as possible and really try to give space for questions at the end. And so this is the public realm and infrastructure map. The content in blue is for phase 1. And as I go through these things, keep in mind my colleague Nathan is on the call as well. And then Kate Lammers from the park board as well, who we've been working with a ton for a lot of these aspects. So you can ask any three of us those questions once I get done with this presentation. But so we have Doweling Avenue North, we have the Parkway phase 1, and then we have 33rd Avenue North. So that in total is about a mile of infrastructure. A mile doesn't seem like a lot, but if you were to walk through all of that and just grasp that scale, it is quite a bit of infrastructure. That includes utilities as well, water, sewage. We have electricity coming in. There's a lot going on with this project. Some of the goals are obviously to provide transportation to, within, and out of the site. And really with the high priority on providing safe and convenient connections for our cyclists and pedestrians. There is obviously going to be roads, there will be some parking, but we really want to prioritize people and having a really pleasant riverfront experience and really just revitalizing, or I don't want to say revitalizing, but really just highlighting this section of North Minneapolis along the river and just allowing people to really kind of bask in that experience with a lot of really fun land use amenities as well. So the first part is Upper Doweling. That's from Lindale to the I-94 bridge. Our general proposal right now is for a shared use path on the south side of the street. Doweling right now has 2 bike lanes, one in each direction on the north and south side of the street. They are literally in the street. If you've walked, bike, or driven on Doweling, you know it's a really high volume vehicle area. Some folks may cycle in the street, but I think for the most part, there's a bit of discomfort just because it's such a high vehicle volume. So our proposal right now is to have a shared use path on the south side of the street that would be with cyclists and pedestrians. Ideally, we like to separate the two, but in a situation like this where we have a very constrained right of way, we felt that this was the best option. We also have a boulevard on the north side of the street. So that's at a high level what Upper Doweling will look like. And as we begin to transition to the I-94 bridge, a potential treatment that we're exploring would be like this. This is 26th Avenue North, which is about a mile south of the Doweling Avenue bridge. For right now, the bridge is not up for reconstruction. It has very limited additional load capacity. And so a bollard protection like this is something that we could implement with really low impact to the bridge. In the long term, we are looking to explore having a more robust option, but for right now, that does require coordination with MnDOT, and the funds just aren't on the table for the near term for that enhancement. Transitioning into Lower Doweling, and I realize I'm going through these fast, but I just want to give everyone a kind of comprehensive picture. For Lower Doweling, this is a visualization of how it would look. This would be a two-way two-way off-street bike facility here with a boulevard and a sidewalk as well. It would really serve as a gateway entrance into the site, really activating a lot of the adjacent land uses. This is still an illustrative example of what this space could look like, but kind of gives you an idea of how the entry into the site would be. And if you remember in the Upper Doweling slides, the shared use path was also on the south side of the street. So in theory, if you're on Doweling and Lindale, and I'll just go back a few slides. So in theory, if you're up here on your bike, you'd be able to travel the entire way into the site on that side of the street without having to cross over. Obviously, you'd have to cross the intersection still, but you would have a off-road bike facility for this entire journey into the site, and the same for a pedestrian as well. And then when you get into the site, we have an illustrative example of the parkway. Like I said, we've been working a lot with the parkway on this design. You can see the two-way road, the red granite surface chip. Then we have a separated bike ped facility, or a separated bike facility, rollerblading, etc., scooters. Then also a separate pedestrian facility, some really nice green plantings. And this would stretch north and south along the parkway, connect to some of the land uses, to the music venue, and then further up north to some of the apartment buildings and such. And really just, like I said, really focused on providing that riverfront experience, really focused on providing a transportation system for those folks biking, walking, scootering, etc. The next infrastructure piece is 33rd Avenue North. This is a secondary access point to serve a lot of the industrial land uses here. This treatment does cross several rail lines as well and spur tracks, so we'll have some rail crossings in there as well. And it's a critical access point for a lot of those southern activities, and will connect and provide a bike and ped trail system as well. For those familiar with 33rd, I don't have an existing photo, but there are not even any sidewalks there. The road condition is not in the best of shape, so we view this as a really good kind of secondary access point and opportunity to improve those connection pieces. As I said before, we will be providing public utilities. We also are working with MWMO, the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, on providing either a district or regional stormwater system to treat stormwater runoff within the site of Upper Harbor Terminal and potentially beyond the Upper Harbor Terminal site, but that's still up for discussion. But we're looking at a variety of green infrastructure treatments, trenches, trees, rain gardens, etc., to really capture and treat and convey stormwater runoff before it enters into the Mississippi River. So we are starting our engagement process this week, and then moving into March. I have a calendar on the next page that I'll highlight. But really what we've heard from engagement, and I think our slides have kind of highlighted that, is providing public spaces that are inclusive of Northside residents, connecting the site to the Northside neighborhood, providing a really strong riverfront-oriented experience, and then also connecting with transit services. So the goals of the engagement, which I'll touch on in the next few slides, is to ensure project information is readily available, strengthen relationships, and then ensure that the infrastructure we're creating is really desirable and the best it can be for the community. The timeline, so I realize it is a little tricky with the coordinated plan still being in a public comment period, and Hillary talked about that quite a bit. As of this month, we are starting our engagement process on the infrastructure as well. So, you know, great timing, I know. So we have an open house that's actually going to be on the 26th, and then we have another one on March 16th. So this open house on the 26th is kind of where we share our 10% high-level designs. The week before that, we'll be going back to the BAC and PAC subcommittees to talk through that. And then we'll be working through the 30% layout and council approval in the September timeframe. There's a lot of pieces to the public engagement. We have a website that I can share the link for. There'll be a survey. There's a wiki map where you can provide commentary on the existing infrastructure and the intersections in the realm of this project and give us some feedback. Open houses are January, March, and then we really look forward to getting feedback. So I'm going to end it there and just open it up for questions, or if Kate or Nathan have any comments on pieces that I didn't fully cover.
Thanks, Alexander. For those who don't know me, Nathan Koster, he, him, overall project manager for public infrastructure. The only thing I just highlight is we don't have concepts ready at this time. It's more meant to be conceptual, visionary concepts, not so much the inches and feet of cross sections and layouts. We will be back in 2 weeks, so we'll have a lot more information to share. But at this phase, it's more of the very high level visionary planning vision for the site. So we'll be excited to share that information in 2 weeks, but don't have it ready for tonight.
All right, thanks to you both. I see Dan Miller has a hand raised for questions or comments.
Hello, Alexander and Nathan. Just a comment about 26th Avenue, the overpass there. You know, it's been there about 3 years, and it's the Great Northern Greenway. That whole trail system basically ends at 4th Street North, and then it turns into the overpass, and then it fades at Washington and Second. It's quite a difference, and it's not continuous. And I think this is an opportunity on Doweling as well as Lowry and Washington, all those overpasses, to really look at what potentially could be done inexpensively. And you know, just taking a look at the chain link fence and being able to add a little bit of sculpture, just make it more welcoming and more of a promenade down to these different sites. I know up on 57th Avenue, which is the Twin Lakes Regional Trail, they widened that sidewalk up there to make a combined bike path and sidewalk thing. And so there was, you know, might be a different type of bridge or something there that's stronger, but it would be definitely nice to see what could be done with MnDOT, even though it's not in the process of doing big changes like they're doing on 35W, but to be able to soften those elements. The bollards on 26 have been torn down, ripped up on Washington for I think the last 2 years. I don't know how come, because there's not a lot of traffic that enters into going up 26 there. That's big truck stuff, but it's you know, it's half the bridge is gone, and it's been that way because of the pandemic, and just haven't been able to get things fixed. And it would just be nice to see what could be done to really improve the quality of that experience to get down to the river. Thank you.
Dan, I hear you. It's a great comment on sidewalk widening. We have had conversations with MnDOT on additional load bearing. I think we could list a dozen potential improvements on the Doweling Avenue Bridge, and we're working through those and just trying to see what can we get right now, you know, what can we get later on down the road. At some point, that bridge will be redecked, reconstructed, and it's more a question of, until then, what's the best treatment that we can get. But I totally hear you. And in regards to kind of adding public art elements, I didn't get to talk about this in my presentation, but we do have a kind of additional scope around public art. So we're working with our design team and some local artists to identify pieces in the infrastructure where we can do permanent art installations. And so there's definitely a potential to add permanent art in conjunction with the design and really, you know, really make this place more inclusive, have better community ownership, and make it more, add a kind of a sense of beauty to it that concrete really just can't do.
Thanks, everybody. Jenny, I see you have a hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. exciting project. And I like the thought of like how to connect North Minneapolis with that barrier of 94. And I heard you talk about Doweling. And I thought I heard Alyssa say this, but maybe I misunderstood. But are there any non-car ways to get across 94, like pedestrian bridges or pedestrian bike bridges? Or are any of those kind of talked about for the future? Because just in my experience, it's always unpleasant crossing a highway and then with the cars that are also doing the same thing.
So yeah, Nathan, do you want to talk about the pedestrian bridges? I know we've explored, having a land bridge, etc. And yeah, I hear you. Doweling is tough. Nathan, do you want to just talk at a greater detail about some of that?
Yeah, I would say that's some of the biggest things we've heard from the neighborhood, both from our planning workshops with the Collaborative Planning Committee and Pillsbury United has hosted community events, and that consistently is a theme. And one thing I want to highlight from years past is previously this project stopped at the bridge, but our recommendation looking at Vision Zero was to extend it to Lyndale because it is on the Vision Zero network and it is a priority to bridge that gap. I-94 has caused longstanding harms to this neighborhood, and we have picked up on that, and we're trying to do as much as we can. And I guess I can step out a little further than Alexander and say, I would say we're advocating with MnDOT as much as possible to improve that connection until such time that we can either get a new bridge or a secondary bridge. For those of you familiar with the city's resolutions with the MnDOT's highway project on 252-94, we did make pretty strong statements about not expanding the freeway and also mitigating the harms of the freeway by looking at other additional bridge crossings, specifically exclusively for walking and biking. So we're pushing on as many fronts as possible, and it's good to hear this committee would like to see us do that as well.
Yeah.
This is Alyssa. I'll just kind of jump in with a follow-up comment. I'm excited to hear that you all are really exploring what can you do in terms of short-term solutions and not getting totally roadblocked by the fact that MnDOT isn't going to be redoing the bridge anytime soon. I think I'm really interested to hear from you all about how you see the infrastructure projects around that bridge, not necessarily today, but when you're coming back, how you see those pushing MnDOT even further than they would typically go. I think we often run into situations where we see MnDOT reconstructing a bridge and it is the weakest point in the facility for people walking and biking. So really wanting to hear from you on how you see the role of what you're putting on either side of that bridge, pushing the envelope with MnDOT. And then I think the other thing I'll just say is would love to see some conversation and exploration about turning some of these existing car bridges into walk bike bridges. I know that that's a hard sell. I think we often think we have to leave what is there and then just add something else for people walking and biking. But it will definitely be cheaper to take an existing bridge and convert that for people walking and biking and just remove cars from the bridge. So would love to hear some conversation about that from you all.
I could take a quick stab and Nathan can kind of fill in some of the rest. And I would even include the county in this discussion as well, because Washington Avenue North is county owned. Nathan and I in Public Works in general always try to provide a whole network picture. And so obviously we have a significant opportunity to add some great bike ped infrastructure here. We've also done had a lot of conversations with Hennepin County about connecting into the Weber Camden 44 facilities that'll be being developed to the north. So, and this is a great opportunity to prove that north-south connectivity on Washington Avenue. Also traveling south on Washington Avenue. I'm sorry, I don't have the map up, but connecting to Lowry as well, and that the bike bridge that exists over there. So we've had those conversations with Hennepin County. They're ongoing. We're starting to also have those conversations with MnDOT, and it's really bringing transparency and visibility to all of those agencies on what we're trying to do here and making them understand the responsibility that they have to influence that. So I say network transparency, in timing things out. So, maybe the said agency may not have the capacity right now to make those improvements, but getting it in their long-term plans or short-term plans so that when that opportunity does happen, it's integrated and occurs. In regards, I'll just leave it there and let Nathan add anything additional, or Kate too.
No, I think you did well.
Thanks, team. Dan, did you raise your hand back up again?
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah, on the phase 1 lower Dowling Avenue illustration, it shows a bike lane and separated by a boulevard, and then a walk path. And I know that we're a little bit before really getting into materials about widths and everything else, but I just wanted to assert that if we look at West River Road going south from Plymouth is a good example of where you have basically parallel walk and bike paths, but oftentimes they'll just get the runners prefer the runners prefer the bike path over the walking path, and that's never going to change. That's just going to happen. I just hope that when you're looking at these paths like this that are divided, that the bikeway has ample width so you can move around people easily. I just think that they wind up being mixed use depending on. Another example would be West River Road north of Plymouth, where you have a walkway that's down by the river and a bike path that's sitting up by the road, and neither are very heavily used, but they both get interchanged depending on what people want to do, and it's just helpful to be able to have a width enough to accommodate all users on both, particularly on the bike lanes. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dan. I agree. It's one, behavior is always, it's designing for behavior and really understanding what that behavior is, and using those examples as we proceed with our design. So we hear you on that.
Alexander, this is Alyssa. I'm sorry if I missed this. What is upper and what is lower for Dowling Avenue? Is there a...
Yep, I'll just highlight this. So we're considering upper Dowling basically from Lindale to the bridge right here. And then once you get past the I-94 bridge, this is considered lower Dowling. So this map doesn't depict it super great, but I would say the lower half, once you cross the bridge, get into the kind of Washington Avenue area, that's what we're considering lower Dowling, this area here.
It's mainly because of the hill. We always had trouble internally talking about what section we were talking about, but like the bridge and up, it's like significantly higher up. Like you can see down into the site and into the river. It's a pretty cool view shed. So that's just how we've been talking about it, because it's also like two different types of cross sections in what we have. So that's the nomenclature we came up with. It's not quite the uptown downtown thing, but we think it makes sense.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments for the project team? All right, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I think we'll thank you all for your time. It's been great to have you here and get an update on this project. I think we can maybe spend a little bit of time. I have some things I want to bring forward for discussion. Obviously, staff, you're welcome to stick around, but I know you, I think you were planning to be done at 5 o'clock was the end of your time on the agenda. So
we're joining we're co-presenting with Hillary at the meeting that she just left to.
So one piece of advice for the committee is we will be back in 2 weeks to talk more details, infrastructure, and take more resolutions on like design details that we'll be sharing. But if you are wanting to talk about more of the development, I think you had highlighted the parking garage. I think it would be in your best interest to pass a resolution sooner rather than later, because that will be going to City Council for a vote in the near term. So I think that would be a path that I would recommend if you want to formally have input for the project.
Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that distinction.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good night. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for coming. Have a good presentation.
Yeah. Thank you all for all the work you do.
Right back at you.
Like, yep.
All right. So I think we still have a half hour left in our meeting tonight. I wanted to bring up some thoughts and see how the group would feel about, as Nathan mentioned, potentially passing a resolution on the draft coordinated plan. So that's the portion that Hillary presented on before she left. I could potentially walk us through the plan, but otherwise I have maybe a draft motion that I could read for the group to kind of share my thoughts. I think it might be more efficient than trying to page through a 96-page document. It's long. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Fingers crossed this works. Otherwise, I'm going to have to heavily apologize to Millicent for not sending things in advance.
It looks good. It's up.
Yeah, but that's super tiny. Okay. Matthew, would you be able to let me know if anybody raises hands? I can't see anyone's face anymore.
Sure, and I'll just note too, I put it in chat, but individually folks can manually zoom to make that bigger for your own screen. So feel free to do that as well.
Cool. Thanks, Matthew. So as I mentioned, I spent a little bit of time going through the Upper Harbor Terminal draft coordinated plan. It's about 96 pages. It includes some of the visuals that Hillary shared with us earlier tonight, as well as a lot of other specific things she didn't really get into. I was really looking at it, for this committee for the bicycling perspective. There are some listed strategies in the plan that I think are really great that we would want to support. They are listed in bullet points that I will read. So those are working with Metro Transit to expand transit service to the site, trying to fund some of those bridge improvements that Alex just mentioned, building accessible pedestrian and bike connections between Northside neighborhoods in the site, upgrading the bike lanes to off-street trails so that they're separated, providing wide boulevards that offer separation from vehicle traffic, thumbs up on that, as well as all of the landscaping, public art, pedestrian street level lighting, things that make it enjoyable to walk and bike. And then commitment to safe streets. So I think those are some things in the plan that I was really excited to see and wanted to pull out and highlight as relevant to us as a group. And then one of the things that I wanted to pull out that doesn't seem so great is the giant parking ramp on one of the parcels. So they talk about, I think there are 7 or 8, maybe 9 parcels, and there's like many of the parcels have an A and a B. So there's one parcel that they have named parcel 7A, and they plan to build a 420 stall parking ramp on that parcel. That parking ramp won't be in operation until at least 2025. It's in the section of the plan that's 2025 and beyond. They sort of have a part 1, which is like between now and 2025, and then a part 2, which is 2025 and beyond. And so if you include that 420 stall parking ramp, there are at least 586 parking stalls in the plan overall, as well as several other spots where they say this parcel maybe also, we might use this one for parking. We're not going to tell you exactly what we're going to use it for now. Here's a bunch of proposed uses, and where parking is one of the proposed uses. So I don't think that's a good idea. I think it doesn't comply with the complete streets policy. We know that parking really incentivizes people to drive, It doesn't really comply with the new transportation action plan. It really undercuts the city's climate action plan. And I think thinking about the lifespan of a parking ramp, parking ramps are, their typical lifespan is 30 to 40 years. So if we approve this parking ramp and it gets built in 2025, it's still going to be there in 2055, which feels like not the greatest move when we're trying to cut driving quite a lot in the next decade. So those are some of the thoughts that appear in this draft motion. What do people think? I know most of the folks have probably not read the 96-page document, but would love to get thoughts. And I'm relying on Matthew to call on raise hand.
Okay. Deanna, why don't you go first, and then Phil.
Okay, I haven't had an opportunity to read it, and I haven't really even thought about this in a couple of years. I did notice that there was an arts center on the plan. Did they say what their vision for that was? Is it going to be a large arts performing area? I'm wondering whether the 400 parking spaces are actually, or could be, totally associated with that arts center. Otherwise, why would we need 400 parking spaces?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they have sort of during phase one, so pre-2025, there's a bunch of surface parking that is meant to serve the entertainment structure, the performing arts structure, because this parking ramp won't be in operation yet. So they're going to open the entertainment center before this parking ramp gets built. The parking ramp has, I think it's about half the spaces that are, I can't remember the specific term. It's something like community and residential parking spaces, because there is going to be a fair amount of housing on the site. But I think for me, the juxtaposition is they're ready to commit to hundreds and hundreds of parking stalls, but they're not as, they're going to continue to work with Metro Transit to try to get transit expanded, but there's no firm commitment to saying we want transit, biking, walking to be primary ways that people access the site. I think we see that even in the initial discussions we're having about the public right-of-way and how it is, it is constrained and lots of things are competing for that space. We know that means cars are competing for that space and driving is competing for that space. So I don't know if that totally answered your question. I think it's unclear to me, because they're going to open the venue without this parking ramp, which to me says you don't need the parking ramp. And then later they say, but after we open it and have been operating it for a couple of years, then we're going to need the parking ramp, which is in the time frame where the city is supposed to be shifting people away from driving.
Yeah, it does seem a little backwards. It would be nice to have them answer that question before we kind of refine that paragraph. Primarily because I think that if there is a performance venue there, and it has seating for 800 seats or 1,000 seats, they would need some kind of parking associated just with that facility.
Well, and I think, that
Alyssa,
also, go Matthew.
I was gonna say, I see you typing the note there. I would just add like how many seats, and then also, is the purpose of the ramp supposed to be for that venue? That's what I heard. That's another piece of what I heard Deanna say.
Yeah.
Cool. Deanna, on this, or Alyssa, on this topic, anything else? Otherwise, Philip has a question or a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Yeah, a couple of things jump to mind. Certainly, I mean, the biggest issue, without kind of knowing the, the financial projections under the mix of businesses are going to be there. I think the biggest issue is if the site is going to be opening through 2025 without the parking ramp, why would this plan to build a 420 stall ramp, why is it there? It does seem unwise. Also, there's no, but I would also add a couple of things. One is, there's no talk about sort of parking pricing. I mean, it's just essential to, and we all think about free parking, but we absolutely need to talk about the pricing and variable pricing of any sort of parking. But also, if you look back, I don't know, 70, 90 years in downtown Minneapolis, you had structures that were flexible. And so they started out with maybe parking on the second floor, and maybe they added to the third floor, or they added to the first floor. So having a structure that at least is, if there's any parking, it's got to be a flexible structure that can shift from parking, adding to or from. So that's one comment on the parking. The other, just a small little point. Small little point about the use of landscaping. I think better to use green infrastructure, because I think the transportation people tend to think about landscaping as amenity, and we want to make sure that we're emphasizing that we're thinking about multifunctional biologic greenery. So more than landscaping. So if green infrastructure feels like a term that would be better, kind of spark thinking better, I would use that.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. At least for this list, I tried to take them pretty directly verbatim from the plan. So, but I'll refer back to that, because I think your point is well taken, that green infrastructure means more than just pretty sidewalks.
Yeah, right.
Any other thoughts or comments? I should say for new folks that just with things being online, being what they are, typically we don't, at the subcommittee level, we have a more informal discussion. Often we will send out after the subcommittee a draft of something via email that you can continue to comment on, and then we'll bring sort of an amended document to the full committee meeting to pass. Matthew Deardahl, do you still think that is an okay thing to do tonight, given Nathan's comments about passing things sooner rather than later?
Yes, I do. And so I think just to put a like support and finer point on it too, like I think I've talked to most of the new members, and one of the like the main purposes, or I guess one of the best things about the committees is when you pass like really clear, strong resolutions, and like Alyssa was saying, that formally happens at the full committee. Also, what Alyssa did here is a really good example. You can bring resolutions if you have prepared beforehand, but then also, as you'll see in upcoming meetings, the committee can also sort of like on the fly come up with a resolution and get pretty close, and then make some, hopefully small changes at the full committee. So this is just a good example of how we use subcommittees and how that sort of translates to a formal resolution at the full, if that makes sense. And then finally, yes, per Nathan's comment, I think passing this resolution sooner than later would be a good thing. Hope that helps.
Cool. Thanks, Matthew. Anybody else have thoughts for now? Otherwise, I can plan.
Dan Miller.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know quite if this fits or not, but underneath your last point, design safe streets with that prioritize and encourages safe travel behaviors. Is it worth, maybe Matthew, you know something about this in the planning state, is anybody looking at 2nd Street and trying to upgrade the facilities on that from Doweling to Lowry?
I would say, I mean, multiple people, like I'm thinking about 2nd Street, in the lifetime of TAP, so it's a street that's on our, what we call our all ages and abilities network, or basically we want that to be protected. a protected bikeway over the next 10 years. I am not. Let's bring that question to the next meeting too. I don't believe there are immediate plans as part of what was presented today, but it's definitely something that we're thinking about as a connector, a connected or a complementary project.
That's what I was just wondering, if it was worth pointing it out as a project that maybe should be looked at doing in conjunction with, the Upper Harbor, so the whole thing kind of ties together.
I think that's a really smart observation and something we should note in this process. Yes, that's a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Especially, real quick, especially because of the Weber 44. I mean, that's going to be a massive improvement just to the north, and then Lowry has a pretty nice facility across the river.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then Wes has his hand up.
Yeah, just
Sorry, Wes, you're muted. I think I clicked your mute button by mistake. I'm sorry.
Oh.
No worries.
I was in deep thought.
I just on the parking question and the question of this ramp in relation to the thing that pops out for me, and I'm not super familiar with this plan. It's not work that I've been involved in at all. Is that so? You have all of these different, as you go through the plan. These different call outs of the different parcels and what they're going to be for, and a number of them are residential properties. And my reaction here is that there's a lot of ambiguity around parking, and a 420 ramp stall is very different. Like considering the scale of what's happening here, a 420 ramp stall is very different depending on what parking ratios are provided for the different residential projects. And that's the kind of thing where like I saw that district parking is referenced, and it makes me really it's one thing to say we're going to build this ramp to support people who are driving in to see concerts and that kind of thing, but all of these residential projects are going to have very low unit to parking space ratios, and we will encourage people to have fewer vehicles and to share those spaces, or however that kind of gets worked out. I mean, it's a very different thing if each of these projects is building a big underground ramp to support them, and I could see the latter being very possible. So that's just kind of maybe a further concern to raise there in some form.
I see Philip's hand again.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would just follow up. I'm assuming this 420 stall ramp is the, as in the only district parking for all commercial, entertainment, residential parking. But not having looked at the whole plan, yeah, that would be really disturbing if there were also if residential property developers were going to be saddled. Well, certainly saddled with, sort of old-fashioned parking ratios for housing, and then we also have a parking ramp. That would be really bad.
This is a follow-up question for staff. So for new members, we saw 3 or 4 months ago, there was, I think, an action by the Planning Commission around the city exploring removing parking minimums. Do staff happen to know where that's at? Is that something I should look into outside the meeting? That would impact this project.
So I can comment on that a bit. fell away a little bit as staff were working to get through the built form regulations, which have since been completed and went in, I believe, gone into effect. But that work will be returning on that relatively soon. I don't know the exact timeline of when it might pass, but it is on the docket.
Thanks, Wes. All right, so I think this is a great set of comments to start since we're almost at the end of our meeting time, and I do want to leave a few minutes for announcements. I think I will end us here, but I will send this out to the group, and Matthew, I may need your help in making sure I have all the emails for the new members, but I will email this out to everybody who attended the meeting, maybe with some changes if I'm able to make them based on the comments from tonight. And then if folks have additional thoughts or questions that we want to have answered before maybe moving this as a resolution at the end of the month at our full meeting, hopefully sending that out in advance will give us some time between things to get that ready to go. So thanks everybody for your comments and your questions. I think they're great questions. And hopefully we can continue to make this plan the best it can be. It's come a long way, so it's exciting to see it in its current form. With that, I will open it up to the group for announcements. Anyone is welcome to have announcements.
I have an announcement real quick before anybody else jumps on. It's about our 2021 calendar. So there's been another change. Our July BAC Engineering Subcommittee meeting is scheduled for July 20th. We need to move it back 1 week to July 13th. The city isn't having any meetings on July 20th because of Eid. Is that the correct pronunciation? So we just want to let you know that we'll be moving it to July 13th.
Thanks, Millicent. Matthew, do you want to jump in? I see you have a hand raised.
Yeah, so I want to give an announcement or an update that Ethan Foley and Luke Hansen, both planners in our team in Public Works, working on the street design guide, let me know that they've been working hard to wrap it up. This has come before the BAC, I think several months ago. They're very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. They incorporated a lot of your comments and wanted to let you know that they're trying to wrap it up fairly soon and bring it to City Council as well as the BAC and the PAC to both let you know what's in it, but also because of what I think is your special role with the street design guide, which I'll just call holding us accountable to it. Kind of want to share it with you almost in a way, trying to think of what the right word is, like orient everyone to let you know what's in it and how we plan to use it. So I just wanted to give you that heads up. We're thinking probably a 5E subcommittee coming up, maybe in February. So if there's any thoughts on that, let me know. Otherwise, that's the update. And so for the folks who may not know about this, the street design guide is like it sounds. It's a guide for planners and engineers in Public Works to design streets that we're reconstructing. So it'll have a ton of detail. It's fairly lengthy and really nice graphics and things like that. But everything from how wide all of the different features in a street should be, travel lanes, bike lanes, sidewalks, things like that, and I'll look at intersections and how we'll treat busier streets and calmer streets and things like that. So it's probably one of the most important documents that we have, in addition to the actual policies that are adopted. So I just wanted to give that heads up. That's my update.
I have a quick announcement. So in addition to my role as 5E's chair, I'm the outgoing vice chair for the 2018-20 term. And our outgoing chair, Nick Mason, had asked me in that role to represent the Bicycle Advisory Committee on a Complete Streets working group that's happening right now. Just because of the strange timing, that would have been something that I think Nick typically would have done. But because of the endless clerk appointment questions about when service was going to be over, Nick asked me to do that. That group has met twice now. And is going to have a third meeting at the end of January, wherein it sounds like we're going to see a revised Complete Streets policy draft. Kind of depending on timing of that, I would imagine that might also come to the February 5E's meeting for review. I think there's some folks there who are really excited about tightening that policy and making it further demonstrating a very firm commitment to walking, biking, and transit. And there are some folks in that group who are very worried about driving and parking. So it'll be, I think, important for us to weigh in on as a group when that comes up. But just wanted to let you all know that that was happening. Any other announcements?
Actually, I guess I may just have one. I hadn't thought of it until now, but maybe it's worthwhile to give a heads up that at the full committee coming up on the fourth Wednesday, we will have elections for our executive team. And so we'll explain that at the beginning of the meeting about what positions are open and how we'll do that process, but it might be worth thinking about that in the next couple weeks. And so those positions are chair, vice chair, secretary, and then committee, subcommittee co-chairs. And so that team combined with me, Milsa, and Chris make up the executive committee, and that group sets the agenda for the full committee. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Matthew. I see Janice has a hand up as well.
That's what I was going to say. I was just going to, since we have so many new members at this meeting, just to, as a heads up, people think about if they want to take a leadership role.
Cool. Any other announcements? Otherwise, I will end us only 1 minute late. We stayed so close to being on time today. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm sad we couldn't meet you all in person. Someday we will all be able to go out for dinner or a beer or something after a meeting.
Yeah, really.
But I look forward to getting to know all of the new folks in the virtual environment as best we can, and working alongside you online and offline.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye,
Take care, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.